Hello, my name is Marie. I'm 49 years old. I have 3 children, 2 sons. One is 19, the other is 8, and a 13-year-old daughter. Before the hurricane, I used to sell potatoes, okra, and beans at the local market. And my late husband used to farm and take care of the livestock. But now my son helps me with the livestock. Livestock to us is very important. It has sustained us during tough times. It's like a bank account. Sometimes we have to sell the livestock and use the money for school fees, emergencies, or even to help us pay rent. A difficult decision that we had to make when evacuating our home was deciding to leave our livestock behind. My son tried to stay with the livestock so we don't lose absolutely everything, but it just got so bad with the rains that he left and joined us at the shelter. Life at the shelter is difficult. The one where we were housed at was a church with one big hall for all of us to stay in. So we had men, women, children, families, the elderlies, all under one roof. We shared 2 toilets. There were no showers, no kitchen, no privacy. And getting water was a bit of a challenge because only so much was given to us per day. This hall was the place where we would sleep, eat, and keep all of our belongings. My children and I stayed at the shelter for 3 months before we got a temporary accommodation through an NGO. A typical day at the shelter started at about 4 a.m. I, together with a few women, would use our buckets to bath and then prepare coffee and bread to eat. At about 6 a.m., my oldest son and I would leave the shelter to see what we can salvage and what we can take from our home. In the days after the hurricane, my son and I went to check on the garden and the house to see the damage. Then after that, we would try to piece together things in the house, and neighbors would help each other out. Some men from my village would try and help me, and where women could as well, we'd help carry the rubble together. My son and I tried to replant, but then there were rains that continued, and the seeds that we were given at the shelter were wiped away, so we were not able to get ahead. Most shelters are typically empty during the day because we're all out trying to salvage what we can and restart our lives. But for those who have children, we are able to leave some of them behind to take care of, or rather to look after our belongings. My daughter usually looks after my belongings together with those of my neighbors, and we try and help each other as families because most of us leave the shelter during the day to go and try and salvage what we can and see if we can rebuild our homes and lives. As a woman, I found staying at the shelter to be difficult. There were resources that were given to some people, but my family didn't get much apart from food parcels, seeds, and water. Some families got mats, tents, clothes, water purification packets, hygiene kits, blankets, and some even received mattresses, but we didn't get any of these. Why? Well, some were stolen before they got to all the families. Others were given according to favoritism, or some people were even willing to bribe by using money and other means, especially when it came to women. Yeah. But most were items that was just not enough for all of us. The NGOs that donated them didn't have enough to go around. There were about 300, over 325 of us at our shelter, all sharing one hall. So, yeah, resources were limited. It's been really difficult for my children. My daughter said she doesn't feel safe alone in the shelter, and my youngest son gets restless and goes to play outside, but it's not ideal. They're unsupervised. during the day, but what can we do? My son and I try and return to the shelter. My eldest son and I try to return to the shelter before it gets dark for safety reasons, and then we prepare something to eat. Then we huddle together and sleep on the floor with the blankets that we came with. It is a rather uncomfortable situation when it comes to sleep because there are all sorts of people, men, women, children, babies, and the space is limited. And even though we know each other, some of us anyway, because we're from the same community, we've never been in such close and intimate quarters, so it does get a bit uncomfortable. We were supposed to be at the shelter for 3 days, but we stayed for 2 months. The congregation needed the church, and in cases where some people stay at school, they have to leave sooner because school's open and the children need them for classes. What I can say is while the conditions are really hard at the shelter, it helps to have a roof over one's head, and I will always be grateful for that.